Welcome to Women in Community. So this month we're talking about overcoming in the journey. And that is such an exciting subject. And so we have also invited some friends to help us to share this month. And this month I am so fortunate to have my dear friend Laura Kubilis. And so I've known her since 2003.
Been a long time.
And then I was on staff at Victory Bible College, and she came in as a student and then started working with me. And so I quickly discovered that Laura was very gifted. You were very gifted, or are very gifted in so many ways. But most of all, I noticed that you had such a hunger for the Word of God. And so we have been friends, like I said, and my husband and I, we kind of consider you as a daughter, you know. We feel that way about Laura. So Laura is originally from Ohio.
Yes.
And so would you like to tell us a little bit, about that and how you came to Tulsa?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first, I'm honored to be able to share here, and just excited to be able to be a part of what you guys are doing. So, I'm originally from Northeast Ohio. I grew up there, born and raised there in a really small community, and was a part of a really active ministry, a great, vibrant church that was wonderful in the community, very involved, and all the way through was able to be involved in different ministry aspects of the church. From middle school through high school, we did a lot of evangelism. I was able to take a couple of out-of-country ministry trips. We did Bible studies at the schools and prayer meetings. I mean, a lot of things. But what's funny is I never really thought of it as ministry.
Right.
I was just involved in the church, involved in the youth group, and it was just a part of who I was. And so when it came time for college, I started applying for pre-med, and that's what I thought I was going to do. I got offered a really nice scholarship to a local university and went to visit it with my family. They were, of course, thrilled. We didn't have a ton of money, and so that was a really exciting opportunity.
I didn't know that about you.
Yes, it's true. Yes, and it was going to pay for books, tuition, and extras.
Goodness.
So they were going to pay me to go to school there, and it was a good university. It wasn't a small community college. I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Until I walked on the campus, and this feeling in my gut just said, this isn't it. Laura, This is not it. And I looked at my mom, who was, of course, thrilled.
Yeah.
And I said, this isn't it. She was not happy with me. But I just knew in my heart that wasn't it.
Uh-huh.
And so, fast forward some time, I actually ended up going to a Christian liberal arts university in Springfield, Missouri.
Right.
And after a couple of months, I said, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the next step, but I don't think this is the long-term goal.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know what that meant. And I had what we call a divine appointment, right?
Yes, I love those.
I could continue doing things my way, either go pre-med or in music school. I know that's crazy, I was 18. Or I could go to Bible school. I didn't know what that would look like. But that was a way that God was going to use his timbers to build the framework of how I was going to see the rest of my life. And
that's amazing.
It was a very surreal moment for me.
Yeah.
Went home and started looking into Bible schools. And less than a year later, I was here in Tulsa.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Going to a Bible school, I should also say that I didn't even know existed 6 months before that. So it was really, if God hadn't brought me to that liberal arts university to meet the associate pastors at that church, I would not have known about the school that I ended up attending. And again, learning all the things that I ended up learning here in Tulsa.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was a ride.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. And so I know that you have things stirring in your heart and things that you have seen fulfilled to some degree, but I believe that there are things that are still, still to be experienced and walked out. And so I'm just so excited to be a part of that journey with you.
Well, I'm glad that you're part of it with me.
And so, who knows, oh man, all the wonderful things that we have in store in the future. I'm very excited about that. So I wanted to ask you also, like what has been one significant transition or paradigm shift that you have experienced and how you navigated that?
Right. When you asked me that a couple of weeks ago, it speaks to a season that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Right.
And that's just getting married and having young children.
Yeah.
And so, from the time I was 18, 19 until I turned 30, I was able to basically do whatever ministry things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
If people called and said, hey, do you want to go lead worship for this event? I was like, yes, let's go. Hey,
Yeah.
do you want to do a women's conference in Illinois? I'll be there.
Yeah.
Let's go to Italy for 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
Put me on a plane, I was so excited. And then, of course, I got married. And that doesn't take anything away from the ministry
No.
gifts and callings that God put on my life. But it does, there's a transition, there's a change. You can't just answer the phone and say yes. You have to go to you have to say, hey, what do we have going on? Are we busy? You have to look at your schedule because
Yeah.
that's a relationship that you have to nurture and you have to take care of. And then 3 years later, our firstborn came along, and I
Yeah.
have 2 beautiful little girls.
She does. Oh my goodness.
And they are
Yes.
wonderful. And so, when you have a child, I feel like, and maybe this is where I feel like the church, not my church, but the church, the global church, has sort of failed women a little bit.
Absolutely.
Because there, I feel, is this perception that you are going to give birth to this baby,
Yeah.
and now all you're going to want to be is a mom
Yeah.
from morning till night. And through the night
Oh
into
my
the day
goodness,
until
yes.
they all blur together.
Yeah.
But the ministry gifts and callings that God puts on us, they don't go away.
No, they do not.
And not only do they give life to others, but they give life to us.
Yes, they do.
And so
Very well put. I love that.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
I found myself 2 weeks in with a newborn,
Yeah.
crying my eyes out to my husband
Yeah.
with the worst case of cabin fever I can imagine.
Yeah.
And just feeling bad about it on top of it.
Right.
Like, how can you possibly feel bad? Or how can you feel like you don't want to stay home with this baby all the time?
Right.
This is a baby, it needs you. And of course, I adore my children and I do want to be
course.
with them. But there was also something stirring in me that said, there's other things too. Now, you don't put this aside,
Right.
but now it's ministry gifts and callings and your family and your husband and your children. And how do I navigate all of that?
Yes.
And to be very honest, there were several months that were very difficult for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And continue to be difficult from time to time if we're
Right.
honest. But I just, let me think here. I wrote this down. I had an image of the person I was going to be when the baby came along, but it turned out I was just Laura with a baby.
Love it.
I was still me, and I
Yes.
needed to be able to get out, and I needed to be
Yes.
able to do things. And so the transition for me was trying to figure out how to balance it all.
Absolutely.
How to try to navigate being the very present mom that I wanted
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah.
I quit my teaching job during the days and went to just doing some part-time lessons in the evenings. I
Yeah.
teach music, and I quit doing worship leading almost exclusively for almost a year. And that was a big transition for me.
Yeah, it is a huge transition. And I can so relate with that. I was very fortunate in that situation. I had a husband, who really shared those tasks. And so he would study, and then I would get the time, he would take the kids and I would get to study or whatever. And so, but yes, all right. But that is, so have you feel like you have been able to preserve your calling instead of just, oh, well, forget about that now for the next 20 years.
Right. I mean, preserve it, yes. There was never a point that I felt like it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Never a point where I felt like, well, this is it. It was more of a struggle. And I think it was kind of this fight or flight, instinct that kind of took over. And I think maybe for some women it's flight. They just say, well, never mind.
Right.
For me, it was fight. And so it was a struggle because I just felt pulled in so many different directions.
Absolutely.
And on one hand, I said, I'm going to be this kind of mom. I'm going to be present. I am not going to be out all the time. I'm not going to be getting sitters all the time. But on the other hand, there was this, nagging, like, I need to be able to give outside of myself. And so there has been some balance found, but it took about a year to really say, okay, and part of that was just having a young child.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't leave that baby all the time.
No.
But as time has gone on and she's gotten a little bit older, and number 2 is now 15 months, I've been able to get out and do some more things. And I'm so excited and so relieved. And honestly, you're a better mom.
Preach it.
Because like I said, you're giving life to others, but you're also giving life to yourself.
Absolutely. That is so wonderful. So what is one thing that you would say to, maybe there are some of you out there that are just struggling with motherhood or being a wife and just working, trying to juggle all of those responsibilities. And so what would you like to say to some of these moms that maybe feel that calling of God upon or on the inside of them, but they just don't know quite how to get to point A to point B, and that's why we're here, by the way, Women in Community. But so that's why we have Laura here to help share about that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say, you have to have a supportive group of people around you, and if you don't, reach out. Find a church, find some friends, find some fantastic female friendships. They just talked about that. But find some people that will help encourage you along the way. And number 2, I wrote this down, is that you need to be an intentional parent, be an intentional spouse, and be an intentional minister, because you don't have to choose, you just have to prioritize. And so you really need to sit down and you need to say, what kind of a parent do I want to be? How available can I be? What family do I have around me to support me, or what friends that can take the kids once in a while, or can you get a sitter once in a while? And to be able to give out of yourself, because if you don't do that, you will stagnate, and it's not good for you, it's not good for your husband or your kids. And that brings up another point, is that there was a point where I had to sit down with my husband, and I really prepared myself. I wrote things down and I said, listen, I have these things inside of me that I want to do and that I need to do. And, I'm not sure how to make that happen. Can you help me make that happen? And he was so supportive and just, I know this is important to you, and has tried to help me find ways and outlets to be able to do that. But I had to sit down and actually explain it to him, because he had no clue. He did not know. He just didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I would say. Be intentional. You have to be intentional. If you just have these gifts and callings and you have these things inside of you, but you're not actively trying to prioritize your time, talk to your husband about it, make it clear to him, make it clear to your kids. My daughter's 4 and she understood when we were driving here what we were doing and why it was important. And so, you don't have to give up your gifts and callings and the things that are in your heart. You just have to prioritize.
That's really good. Thank you so much. And so we're so excited to be here and to be women in community together, because we are, like, we recently just had a conference that we entitled Fulfilling Our Calling Together, and that is the power, I think, of being together. And so until we see you next time, thank you for listening. And thank you, Laura.
Thank you.